I came home early that Thursday, the smell of smoke hitting me like a freight train. My boots crunched on the gravel driveway of our split-level home in Maumee, Ohio, a working-class suburb where the air's always thick with the scent of barbecues, fresh-cut grass, and the faint hum of regret. I'm Jake, 35, a mechanic who runs a small auto shop downtown, the kind of place where you know every customer's name and their car's quirks. Life was good, or so I thought. 10 years married to Sarah, my high school sweetheart turned nurse, and we were still grinding, still us, or at least that's what I told myself. But there she was on our back patio, tossing our wedding album into a fire pit. The flames roared, licking up the edges of photos, us cutting the cake, her in that white dress, me grinning like a fool. Pages curled into ash, and her eyes were wet, tears streaking her freckled cheeks as she whispered a name that wasn't mine, Dylan. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs like a piston. Sarah, what the hell? I shouted, my voice cracking, raw with something I couldn't name yet, fear, maybe, or the edge of rage. She spun around, her face pale, like she'd seen a ghost, or worse, like she'd been caught. Jake, you're not supposed to be here, she stammered, her hands shaking as she dropped another photo into the fire. The air smelled of burning paper and betrayal. I stepped closer, my work boots heavy on the patio stones. Her phone was on the table, unlocked, a text glowing on the screen, meet me tonight. Don't tell him. No name, just a number, but it was enough to make my stomach lurch. Who's Dylan? I asked, my voice low, dangerous. She didn't answer, just stared at the fire, her lips trembling. That's when I knew something was wrong, real wrong. My world, the one I'd built with her, was about to go up in flames, just like that album. And that text was only the beginning. Let me back up, 'cause this didn't start with fire. Sarah and I met in 2014 at a dive bar in Toledo called the Rusty Anchor, a hole-in-the-wall with sticky floors and a jukebox that only played Springsteen and Skynyrd. I was 24, a grease-stained mechanic working at a shop that barely paid the bills, dreaming of owning my own place someday. She was 23, a nursing student with freckles across her nose and a laugh that could stop traffic, sipping a cheap IPA and arguing with her friends about some reality show. I caught her eye across the bar, her in a faded denim jacket, me in a flannel that smelled faintly of motor oil. She teased me about looking like a lumberjack, and I shot back that she looked like trouble. I bought her a beer, and we talked till closing about her crazy professors, my knack for fixing anything with an engine, and how we both hated kale. It was easy, like we'd known each other forever. Our first date was a midnight drive to Lake Erie in my beat-up Chevy pickup. The radio crackled with Born to Run, and she leaned her head on my shoulder, her hair smelling like lavender shampoo. We parked by the water, the waves lapping against the shore, and under a sky full of stars, we promised each other forever. I remember her saying, Jake, you're my safe place, and I believed it, believed us. We got married in 15, a backyard ceremony at her parents' place in Kentucky. String lights hung from the trees, her mom's potato salad was a hit, and Sarah wore a simple white dress that made her look like an angel. I was nervous as hell, fumbling my vows, but she just laughed and squeezed my hand. We danced to Sweet Home Alabama under the moonlight, her giggling as I spun her too fast. Life was simple back then, bills, Netflix binges, her stealing fries off my plate at the diner down the street. But by 2025, things had shifted, slow at first, then all at once. Sarah was working late shifts at the hospital, always on call, her scrubs wrinkled when she dragged herself home at dawn. I was pulling 60-hour weeks at the shop, trying to save for a new garage, my hands perpetually stained with grease. Dinners became silent, just the clink of forks and her phone buzzing on the counter. I'd ask how her day was, and she'd mumble, fine, her eyes glued to her screen. I thought it was just life, you know? Stress, schedules, the grind of being in your 30s. Then there were the weird charges on our bank account, $5,000 gone last month, labeled consulting fees. I'd asked Sarah about it, my voice casual, not wanting to start a fight. She'd shrugged, said it was a hospital thing, some side gig for extra cash. I let it go, trusted her. God, I was an idiot. There were other signs, too, ones I ignored. Her new perfume, sharp and expensive when we were supposed to be saving. The way she'd lock her phone when I walked into the room. The late-night work calls she took in the garage, her voice hushed. I told myself I was paranoid, that marriage was work, that we'd get through it. But that fire pit wasn't the only thing burning. That night, Sarah's parents were in town, Tom and Linda, salt-of-the-earth folks who'd driven up from Kentucky for a family dinner. They were the kind of people who'd bring homemade jam and call you son even if you messed up. We'd planned to surprise Sarah with takeout from Golden Walk, her favorite Chinese spot, and maybe crack open a few beers. Sarah had texted me earlier, saying she was running errands and would meet us at home. I didn't buy it, not after the fire pit, not after that text. Tom and Linda were chatting in the living room, their suitcases still by the door, when I heard it, a muffled laugh from the basement. My gut churned, a cold sweat prickling my neck. I grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer, its beam shaky in my hand. Stay here, I told Tom and Linda, but they followed, their footsteps soft on the carpet. Jake, what's going on? Linda whispered, her voice tight. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The basement stairs creaked under my weight, the air growing damp and heavy, smelling of mildew and something else, something sweet, like Sarah's new perfume. The rec room was dim, lit only by a flickering bulb that buzzed like a dying fly. And there she was, Sarah, my Sarah, tangled up with some guy on our old leather couch, the one we'd bought at a flea market our first year married, back when we'd laughed about being broke but happy. Her sweater was half off, his hands on her waist. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Tom gasped behind me and Linda let out a choked sob. The guy, Dylan, jumped up, his shirt unbuttoned, jeans unzipped, his hair a mess. I knew him instantly. Dylan Carter, my best friend since high school. The guy who'd been my best man, who'd given a drunken speech at our wedding about how Sarah and I were the real deal. The guy who'd crashed on our couch last month after a rough breakup, drinking my beer and promising to pay me back. His smirk hit me harder than any fist. Jake, he said, his voice smooth like he was greeting me at a barbecue. Didn't expect you. Jake, I can explain. Sarah cried, pulling her sweater closed, her face flushed. Tom shouted, what the hell is this, his Kentucky accent thick with anger. Linda just stood there, hand over her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. I wanted to lunge, to break something, Dylan's face, the couch, the whole damn house. My fists clenched, knuckles white, but I couldn't move, rooted to the spot by the weight of it all. Sarah's eyes darted between us, her breath hitching, like she was searching for a lie that would stick. You're screwing my best friend? I said, my voice low, trembling. In our house? Jake, it's not, she started, but Dylan cut her off, stepping forward, his smirk gone. Let's all calm down, he said, like he was the reasonable one. I wanted to scream, to tear the room apart, but I just stood there, numb, the flashlight shaking in my hand. Then it got worse, way worse. Before I could move, Dylan pulled a stun gun from his jacket pocket, its blue arc crackling in the dim light. Sarah screamed, Dylan, no, but he didn't hesitate. A jolt of electricity hit me square in the chest, and I dropped like a sack of bricks, pain searing through every nerve. My vision blurred, the room tilting as I heard Linda cry out, then Tom grunt as Dylan zapped them too. The flashlight rolled across the floor, its beam spinning wildly. When I came to, my head was pounding, my mouth dry. We were zip-tied to chairs, me, Tom, and Linda lined up like hostages in our own basement. The leather couch was empty, the air thick with the smell of sweat and fear. Sarah was sobbing, her hands covering her face, standing by the stairs. Dylan, stop, please, she begged, her voice breaking, but he just laughed, cold and sharp, like a blade slicing through the room. You want it out, Sarah, he said, his voice low, venomous. This is the price. He moved to the closet, yanking open the safe we kept there, hidden behind a stack of old board games. I'd bought it years ago after a break-in down the street to keep our savings safe. Inside was $20,000 in cash, our life savings, money I'd been scraping together for a new garage, and my grandpa's gold watch, a beat-up Rolex he'd worn in Vietnam, the only thing I had left of him. Dylan stuffed it all into a black duffel bag, his movements quick, practiced, like he'd done this before. Sarah just stood there, tears streaming down her face, not stopping him. Her hands were shaking, but she didn't move, didn't fight. You're in on this, I spat, my voice hoarse, my wrists burning against the zip ties. She shook her head, her eyes wide, but she wouldn't look at me. Shut up, Jake, Dylan snapped, zipping the bag. He grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her toward the stairs. Let's go. Sarah, don't, I said, my voice cracking. Don't do this. She hesitated, her eyes flicking to mine, but Dylan yanked her harder, and they bolted up the stairs. The basement door slammed shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot, leaving us in the dark, the hum of the stun gun still ringing in my ears. Linda was crying softly, Tom cursing under his breath. My chest ached, not from the stun gun but from the hole where my life used to be. Sarah, my Sarah, had just robbed me blind, and I didn't even know why. But I wasn't done yet. Tom was the first to move, wiggling his hands free from the zip ties with a pocket knife he always carried, a habit from his days as a volunteer firefighter. Damn cowboy instincts, he muttered, his hands steady despite the chaos. He cut me loose, then Linda, who was shaking so bad she could barely stand. We're calling the cops, she said, her voice trembling, but I held up a hand. Not yet, I said. My voice steady despite the rage boiling inside. I need answers. We stumbled upstairs, the house feeling wrong, like it wasn't ours anymore. The kitchen was a mess. Dishes in the sink, a half-empty coffee mug on the counter, Sarah's lavender scent lingering like a ghost. Her laptop was open, logged into a crypto exchange I'd never seen, the screen glowing with numbers and graphs. I sat down, my hands shaking as I clicked through. Transactions showed $50,000 in Bitcoin moved to an unmarked wallet. Our money, siphoned from my shop's account over months. The consulting fees I'd questioned? A lie, a cover for her transfers. I scrolled through her browser history, my heart sinking with every click. Searches for NFT scams, dark pool trading, how to hide crypto transactions, and DARPANET leaks 2025. My wife wasn't just cheating. She was neck deep in a crypto hustle, the kind of thing you read about on X, where people lose everything to slick-talking con men. Then I found it. A Telegram group she joined, buried in her bookmarks. The chat was called Moonshot 2025, filled with coded messages about drops and wallets. Dylan's name was all over the logs, tagged as DC, the guy running the show. Sarah had been his front, setting up fake NFT projects to launder dirty money, hyping them on X with burner accounts. The group was linked to a DARPANET leak from earlier that year, a massive data dump exposing crypto fraud rings across the Midwest. My head spun. The woman I'd loved for a decade was a criminal, and I'd been played like a chump. I leaned back, the chair creaking under me, trying to piece it together. Sarah had always been smart, too smart for her own good. She'd aced nursing school, could talk circles around anyone. But this was next level. How long had she been lying? How long had she been sneaking around with Dylan, planning this? Linda hovered behind me, her voice soft. Jake, what is all this? Trouble, I said, closing the laptop. Big trouble. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of it. A text from an unknown number. Meet me at Rusty's bar, 11 p.m. Come alone. I knew it was her. I didn't tell Tom or Linda where I was going. They were in the living room, Linda crying into a tissue, Tom pacing, muttering about lawyers and teaching that boy a lesson. I grabbed my keys and peeled out in my truck, the Maumee River glinting under streetlights as I drove to Rusty's bar. A dive on the edge of town where the regulars knew your name and your sins. The neon sign flickered open, buzzing like my nerves, the air heavy with the promise of rain. Inside, the place smelled of stale beer and regret, the jukebox playing a sad country tune about lost love. Sarah was in a back booth, hood up, nursing a whiskey, her hands wrapped around the glass like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Her eyes were red, her freckles stark against her pale skin. Jake, I'm sorry, she whispered as I slid into the seat across from her. Dylan, he blackmailed me. I had to. Blackmailed you into what? I snapped, leaning forward, my hands gripping the table. Stealing our life? Screwing my best friend in our basement. She flinched, her eyes darting to the bar, like she was afraid someone was listening. It wasn't like that, she said, her voice barely audible. Dylan, he found out about a mistake I made at work, a patience chart I fudged. He threatened to report me to ruin my career. I got in over my head, Jake. I didn't buy it, not completely, but her fear was real, her hands trembling as she slid a USB drive across the table. Proof, she said. He's running a crypto scam, using me to clean the money. I didn't want this. He threatened to ruin us. Our house, everything. I pocketed the drive, my jaw tight. Why should I believe you, Sarah? After everything. Her lips parted, but before she could answer, I saw Dylan's black F-150 peel out of the parking lot through the bar's grimy window. Rage took over, a red haze clouding my vision. I ran to my truck, tires screeching as I followed, the night air whipping through my open window. The river glimmered to my left, the road curving sharply as I tailed him, his taillights glowing like eyes in the dark. He wasn't getting away. Not after what he'd done, not after what he'd turned Sarah into. He wasn't getting away that easy. The chase ended at an abandoned warehouse by the Maumee River. Dylan's truck parked under a busted streetlight, its beam flickering like a dying star. The building loomed dark, its windows shattered, graffiti crawling up the walls, tags like "Lost Souls" and "No Way Out" scrawled in neon spray paint. I grabbed a tire iron from my truck bed, its weight cold and heavy in my hand, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it over the river's rush. I crept inside, the air thick with dust and the faint smell of oil, shadows dancing on rusted beams. The warehouse was a maze of crates and broken machinery, the kind of place where deals go bad and secrets get buried. Dylan was in a corner, lit by a single bulb swinging from a frayed cord, counting cash from our safe, stacking bills like he was playing poker. Sarah's voice echoed from his phone, on speaker, sharp and desperate. "You got the money, Dylan. Now leave us alone." My blood boiled. She was still talking to him, still tangled in his web. I stepped forward, tire iron raised, my boots scuffing the concrete. "You son of a..." He lunged, tackling me into a stack of crates. Wood splintered, and we grappled, my fist connecting with his jaw, blood blooming on his lip. He kicked me back, hard, my ribs screaming as I hit the floor. He grabbed a lead pipe from a pile of scrap, his eyes wild. "You're too late, Jake," he sneered, wiping blood from his mouth. "She chose me." I scrambled to my feet, the tire iron still in my grip. "She chose you." I spat, circling him. "She's my wife, you bastard." Sarah's voice cut through the air, sharp and real, not from the phone. "Stop." I froze, my head snapping to the warehouse doorway. She was there, silhouetted against the moonlight, holding a flash drive, her hands shaking. "It's over, Dylan," she said, her voice cracking but firm. "I copied everything, your wallets, your deals, your messages. I'm done." Dylan's eyes narrowed, the pipe still in his hand, but he didn't swing. His smirk faltered, replaced by something colder, fear, maybe, or calculation. "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice wavered. "Try me," Sarah said, stepping forward, the flash drive glinting in her hand. He stared at her, then at me, the air thick with tension. Then he dropped the pipe, snatched his duffel bag, and bolted into the night, his footsteps fading into the river's hum. I turned to Sarah, her face pale under the dim light, her breath hitching. "You're not innocent," I said, my voice low, the tire iron heavy in my hand. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw something raw, guilt, maybe, or shame. But she didn't answer. But the truth was still unraveling. Back at home, I plugged the USB into my laptop, Tom and Linda hovering behind me, their faces drawn. The living room was quiet, the only sound the hum of the fridge and Linda's occasional sniffle. The drive was a goldmine, emails, wallet addresses, screenshots of Dylan's crypto scam. He'd been siphoning millions through fake NFT drops, using Sarah to launder the cash through shell accounts. Her name was all over the files, she'd set up wallets, moved funds, even posted on X to hype the scam under a fake profile called Crypto Queen OH. The blackmail story she'd fed me at Rusty's? Half true at best. The emails showed she'd started the affair with Dylan a year ago after a hospital fundraiser where they'd both had too much to drink. He'd pulled her into his world, promising quick cash to get us out of debt. She'd gone along, at first reluctantly, then eagerly, her messages to him turning flirty, then desperate as he tightened the screws. When she tried to back out, he threatened to leak her role in the scam, to ruin her nursing license, to tell me everything. But she wasn't just a victim. She'd made choices, lied to me, stolen from me, betrayed me in our own home. The worst part? Our neighbor, Karen, knew. She was a nosy retiree who'd always been too curious, always watering her lawn when I pulled into the driveway. She cornered me the next morning, her voice low, her eyes sharp. "I saw Dylan sneaking in, Jake," she said, leaning over her picket fence. "Heard Sarah on late-night calls in your garage. I tried to warn you, but you were always at the shop, always working." I felt like a fool, like the whole neighborhood had known my wife was slipping away while I was under the hood of some Chevy. I confronted Sarah that night, back in our kitchen, the same kitchen where we'd danced to the radio years ago, back when love was easy. Dishes were piled in the sink, a broken coffee mug on the counter from her throwing it earlier. "Tell me the truth," I said, my voice shaking, my hands clenched. "All of it." She broke, her face crumpling like paper. "I felt trapped, Jake," she screamed, another glass shattering as she swept it off the counter. "You were never here, always at the shop, always chasing your dream. I was drowning bills, work, everything. Dylan, he made me feel alive. Then he pulled me into this mess, and I couldn't get out." "You chose it," I said, stepping over the broken glass, my voice cold. "You chose him." She sobbed, sliding to the floor, her hands covering her face. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. "I thought I could fix it, save us." I walked out, her cries fading behind me, the front door slamming like a coffin lid. Then I found the final piece of her lie. The next day, I checked Sarah's email on her laptop. She'd left it logged in like she wanted me to find it. Buried in her drafts was a message to Dylan, dated a month ago. If Jake finds out, I'll pin it all on you. I'll say you forced me, that I had no choice. She'd planned to frame him, maybe even me, to save herself. The cops could trace her crypto transactions, lock her up for years, fraud, theft, conspiracy, it was all there, on that USB. Turning her in would destroy her, her nursing license, her freedom, her life. I sat in my truck, parked in our driveway, the USB burning a hole in my pocket. The street was quiet, kids riding bikes, a neighbor firing up a grill. It was the life we built, the one I thought we'd grow old in. I thought of her laugh at Lake Erie, her hand in mine, promising forever under those stars. I thought of her wedding, her grinning as she smeared cake on my face, the crowd cheering. I thought of the basement, her tears as Dylan robbed us blind, her lies piling up like ash from that fire pit. Forgive her? She'd begged me that morning, on her knees in the living room, swearing she'd changed, that she'd only done it to save us from debt. She said she'd go to therapy, turn over the USB, make it right. But could I trust her? After the affair, the theft, the lies? Or do I turn her in, make her pay? The evidence was ironclad, emails, transactions, her own words. The cops would eat it up and Dylan would go down with her. But it'd mean torching what was left of us, burning our memories to the ground. I'm still deciding. I sit here, in my truck, the engine off, the USB in my hand. Do I let her go, let her start over, maybe give her that second chance she's begging for? Or do I make her face the consequences, knowing it'll destroy her, maybe destroy me too? Drop it in the comments, 'cause I'm lost. Would you forgive her? Could you move on after a betrayal like this? Have you ever had your heart ripped out by someone you trusted? Tell me, 'cause I need to know I'm not alone. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Cheating and Chaos, a place where you will hear a large number of fascinating and intriguing chronicles about hearts that are completely broken by female betrayal. Let's not drag on for long, let's get straight to the point.